Hello, my name is Alexis Miller, and I'm with the Communications Branch of the Executive Council Office. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is a technical briefing on the heap leach facility failure that occurred at the Eagle Gold Mine on June 24th. Our aim is to give you an update on what's new since our last briefing. If we aren't able to answer one of your questions today, please let me know and we'll do our best to follow up. As we've said before, we appreciate many people have questions and concerns about the situation. We don't have all the answers at this point, but we are here to share what we do know. We're still working out the best approach to providing updates to the public. We will be publishing a recording of this briefing on Facebook. At some point, we won't have enough of an update to warrant holding a full news conference every week. We're looking at different ways to provide more information online. I'd like to introduce our speakers who will offer some introductory comments before opening the floor to questions. We have Lauren Haney, Deputy Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources. Stephen Mead is the Department's Assistant Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources. Kelly Constable is Director of Mineral Resources. Sevan Bennett is with our Compliance, Monitoring and Inspections Branch. He is the Manager of Major Mine and Operations North. From the Department of Environment, we have Tyler Williams, a Water Resources Scientist, as well as Cameron Sinclair, a Senior Fisheries Biologist. We have Dr. Sidit Ranaday, Yukon's Chief Medical Officer of Health. And via Zoom, we have Haley Ritchie, a Fire Information Officer from Community Services, to talk about road access. We'll begin with Lauren, EMR's Deputy Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources, who will provide us with an update on the response at the mine site.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Haney. I am the Deputy Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources. To start, you may be aware that we've had a leadership change in our department. I will now be co-DMing, and the purpose of that is to allow me to focus on and lead the team that we have stood up to deal with the Eagle failure response. I'm very grateful to my counterpart for taking on the responsibilities of the rest of the department. In addition to responding to this emergency situation, it's also critical that this department continues to provide important services to Yukoners. As many of you are aware, on Saturday, July 20th, we issued additional inspectors' directions to Victoria Gold Corp. These continue to be in relation to the company's response to the heap leach failure that occurred on June 24th. Yukon government issues inspectors' directions under our relevant laws to direct a company to undertake necessary environmental protection actions. One of these directions, which we issued, instructed the company to begin work on a safety berm to create a safe working zone in the failure area. The berm is critical to ensure that groundwater monitoring and interception wells can be safely installed. The groundwater wells are required to monitor the groundwater for potential contamination and to pump potentially contaminated groundwater to surface for treatment and safe discharge. Our directions to the company required them to start construction of an access road to the berm construction area by Sunday, to develop an execution plan for berm construction by Monday, and to start construction of the berm itself by Wednesday. The company has not met these deadlines. As a result, Yukon government has engaged contractors to design and build the berm. These contractors are familiar with the site and are hoping to mobilize today. Unfortunately, we were made aware last night that there is another forest fire burning and it has crossed the access road to the mine site. That, for now, is impeding our contractors' access to the site. So they are in a holding pattern, waiting until it's safe to mobilize. Once on site, we expect this work to take about 2 weeks to complete. And the groundwater wells I mentioned can be installed in certain locations as construction progresses, as it is safe to do so. Again, we've said many times, human health and safety is an absolute priority, and we still do not have certainty of the stability of the heap. To be very clear, Yukon government is stepping in to undertake only specific environmental protection measures. We are not at this time taking over the site. VGC, Victoria Gold, remains responsible for the site, for the impacts of the failure, and for compliance with its licenses, legislation, and all other measures in the inspector's directions issued to date. As we talked about last week, Victoria Gold is continuing to take action on site. They are continuing with water treatment and some water management actions. The work we are contemplating is complementing and supplementing the work that's ongoing at site. We're taking this action of initiating construction of the safety berm in recognition of the seriousness of this event and the urgency of the situation. We've made this decision following discussions between the technical experts retained by Yukon government as well as the First Nation of Nacho-Nyak-Dun. We take the First Nation of Nacho-Nyak-Dun's concerns very seriously, and we recognize they want to see work done more quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll now pass it on to the Manager of Major Mines and Operations North, Seven Bonnet.
Good morning. My name is Seven Bonnet, and I'm the Manager of Major Mines and Operations North with the Compliance Monitoring and Inspections Branch of Energy Mines and Resources, also known as CMI. Our team has natural resource officers at the Victoria Gold mine site several times a week, and their role is to inspect the site in relation to compliance with the terms and conditions of its licenses, the directions that have been issued to the company, and with all relevant legislation. As you are aware, we have issued inspectors' directions to the company. The most recent directions were issued last Saturday on July 20th and build on the previous directions that we had issued. The directions require the company to prepare plans and implement actions at the site in response to the heap leach facility failure. Some of our directions have ordered the company to prepare plans, and it has replied, the company has responded to those orders. Our technical staff have been reviewing these plans, and this work may help inform future directions. Other directions require the company to do work, including the construction of that safety berm. One of our directions ordered the company to build additional water storage capacity, and some of that work is underway. But we are continuing to discuss with the company how it plans to meet the additional storage requirements.
Thank you. Next, we'll have some comments from Tyler Williams with the Department of Environment. He will be giving us an update on water quality monitoring.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for all being here. My name is Tyler Williams. I'm a water resource scientist with the Department of Environment's Water Resources Branch. I'm here today to provide more information about our water monitoring and reporting plan and to share an update on the most recent water sample results. The Water Monitoring and Reporting Plan is a document that has been developed by the Water Resources Branch in collaboration with the First Nation of Nacho-Nyak-Dun and other Yukon government departments and consultants in response to the heap leach failure at the Eagle Gold mine site. We are in regular communication with the First Nation of Nacho-Nyak-Dun as a partner on sampling efforts. This document guides our approach to water sample collection and testing, including sampling locations, testing logistics, data management, and results reporting as we monitor the impacts of the slide on the receiving environment. These are areas downstream and off-site of the mine. Water samples have been collected at 8 surface water sites downstream of the mine and 3 groundwater sites. Daily sampling is underway at most of these sites, and we continue to receive more results every day. These samples are being screened for various forms of cyanide, heavy metals, and other contaminants. Water sampling results are being compared to federal aquatic water quality guidelines and the water quality objective as part of the mine's license. I want to note here some key differences between surface water and groundwater. Surface water flows relatively quickly. Water in Haggart Creek will reach the Southwestern River in less than a day. Groundwater flow, on the other hand, can be highly variable. There will be slow-moving groundwater paths that will require monitoring for years to come, and there will also be faster groundwater that will report to surface water bodies in the immediate vicinity of the mine. These faster groundwater paths are the main concern at this time. As such, our groundwater monitoring efforts focus on areas in close proximity to the mine site. While there are limitations in being able to collect groundwater data, we are confident that our surface water monitoring in Haggart Creek will detect any contamination leaving the mine site. As of July 20, Core Geo has taken over the responsibility of sampling. Core Geo is a Yukon-based company that has been hired by the government of Yukon to lead on-site water sample collection efforts and execute the water monitoring plan that we have put in place. They've set up a base near Mayo, which helps to save time and resources that were being spent traveling to and from the mine site. Their involvement allows for daily sample collection and expands the capacity of our sampling and testing efforts. They enable our samples to be handled and expedited out of the territory and to the lab as quickly as possible. We have a rush turnaround on results, and the rush turnaround time for these types of tests is at least 5 to 7 days. Core Geo is also monitoring field parameters such as pH and conductivity, which can indicate real-time deviations from normal ranges. A cyanide field kit is also being used on site. The results from the kit are less accurate than lab results, but provide a rough indication of the presence of cyanide, and the test only takes around 40 minutes to return results. The cyanide kit, along with the field parameters, will provide us with initial indications of changes to water quality prior to receiving full laboratory results. Over the past week, we are starting to see a potential change in the levels of contaminants found in the water samples. Between the results coming back from the laboratory testing and our field kit tests, we are observing an increase of cyanide in the water. This is consistent with what we would expect to see for groundwater, which takes longer to seep into the environment than surface water. The process of contaminants entering the environment after this type of an event is not like turning on a tap, where everything happens right away and all at once. It takes time for the contaminants to make their way through the groundwater system and arrive at our water sampling stations. I want to be clear that based on comparing laboratory results to guidelines for samples collected last week, we can be confident the results indicate water quality was protective of aquatic life. However, there remains significant risk to the creek as we see signs of contaminants beginning to reach surface water close to the mine site. If the water quality conditions change, we are prepared to adapt our monitoring and conduct additional monitoring such as toxicity tests to better understand the environmental impacts of the slide. While we are comparing water quality results to aquatic life guidelines, I also want to note that most aquatic life guidelines for contaminants are more stringent than drinking water guidelines. With contaminants such as cyanide, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury, it is common to have water quality tests show levels of these contaminants that are above the threshold for aquatic life guidelines, but below the threshold for drinking water guidelines. For example, the aquatic life guideline for cyanide is 0.005 milligrams per liter, where the drinking water guideline is 0.02 milligrams per liter for the same parameter. We are still awaiting further lab confirmation of these trends and observations as we continue to collect samples and send them off for full laboratory testing. This situation is still evolving, and we are continuously working with the First Nation of Natchinaikdun and other Yukon government departments to sample, monitor, and evaluate the situation and adjust our sampling program based on the most up-to-date information available to us. I will now pass it over to Cameron Sinclair, my colleague at the Fish and Wildlife Branch, to speak about fish health monitoring efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. My name is Cameron Sinclair. I'm the Senior Fisheries Biologist with the Department of Environment. And today I'm going to provide an update on the actions that we are taking to monitor fish populations downstream in the receiving environment of the Eagle Gold mine site. So the department is working closely with the First Nation of Natchitoches and the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans on a long-term monitoring program for fish populations in the entire Haggard Creek watershed, as you can see on the map. We're conducting the fisheries monitoring program to provide us with specific information on how fisheries populations are responding to both short-term and long-term impacts of this slide. So this program includes monitoring for changes in fish abundance, changes in fish growth rates, movement patterns, changes in fish habitats, and also the level of heavy metals accumulating in fish tissue over time. We're also in discussions with the First Nation of Natchitoches and the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans to determine what mitigations can and should be used to protect fish populations downstream and in the receiving environment of the Eagle mine site. So we're sampling across the Haggard watershed at over 50 locations, 21 of which were previously assessed in 2010, allowing us to detect any changes since then, and then going forward allowing us to determine those long-term effects. This work started over about 2.5 weeks ago, focusing on Haggard Creek and then moving on to its tributaries. Unfortunately, the heavy rainfall right now in the area is creating a situation where it's highly turbid and really hampering our efforts. However, we're anticipating that this initial work will be done in approximately the next week or so. Regarding heavy metals in fish, we've collected approximately 50 Arctic grayling and over 40 slimy sculpin, which then our animal health unit in the department will be submitting to an approved laboratory for analysis. This analysis is going to include arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury levels. While these results will take time, I do want to note that this year's survey will provide us with that baseline information on fish in Haggard Creek watershed this year, where future work allows us to determine any change. The Energy Mines and Resources Inspector's report noted that several Arctic grayling were found dead on the mine site. Those fish were sent to Environment and Climate Change Canada. We are still waiting for those results. I want to also note that we've not observed any dead fish downstream in the receiving environment while performing any of our monitoring in the last number of weeks. As this monitoring work continues, we will provide additional updates when they are available. Thanks.
Thank you. Now I'll pass it on to the Yukon's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Sidit Ranade, for some remarks.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I have a very brief update to share with you, but I think you can see it's sort of a dynamic situation that's evolving, right? In terms of the health lens on this, we're really focused on protecting drinking water and protecting other sources of exposure to water with regards to human health. So I'm going to touch on those two things, and then I'm going to take up a third thing, which is requests that have been coming in related to hunting, questions that have been happening related to hunting and the start of the hunting season. So with respect to drinking water, we're fairly sure that the regulated drinking water system is still continuing to meet all of the drinking water guidelines. So we don't have concerns in that department right now, but of course we're going to continue to monitor that, right? In terms of other kinds of surface water exposures, we think about incidental ingestions and we think about sort of contact. And at this time, we don't think that the concentrations that we're seeing merit any changes to that behavior with respect to recreational water use, so contact with water, or incidental ingestion. So if you happen to be in the water and some water comes into your mouth, we don't think that there's any risk based on the levels that we're seeing right now. Again, these two situations are, with respect to the overall incident are evolving, so we will continue to keep our eye on those. And then finally, there have been some questions around sort of what should we do about hunting? Should we make any specific recommendations to hunters with respect to animals in the area? And right now, we don't think there's any reason to change hunting behavior. So there's no recommendation with respect to changing what you would do with hunting in the area outside of the posted signs that are requesting people not to consume fish in the immediate vicinity, and that is related largely to the instability and the dynamic situation that's happening there, as opposed to any risk that we've identified through the numbers or the right. So no changes right now are recommended with respect to hunting or the hunting season or where you hunt or what you hunt. And certainly over time, we'll continue to monitor those with our colleagues in environment and make any recommendations as needed. But there's nothing for right now. So drinking water, no concerns at the moment. Surface water and incidental ingestion, no concerns, but we're monitoring. And then the right now, no specific recommendations against hunting certain animals or anything like that. You carry on as usual.
Awesome. Thank you. Finally, I'll pass it on to Haley Ritchie for a virtual update.
Good morning. Thanks for the introduction, Alexis. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to give a brief update on fire impacts to the access road at the Victoria Gold mine site. So we do continue to have an active fire by the access road. So that's the Haldane Lakes Fire, Mayo 12. This fire is around 4,155 hectares in size, and it was first reported on June 26th. So since then, we've been dealing with intermittent activity. It really correlates to fire conditions in the area. Response goals for this fire have always been limiting impact to the road and the protection of power lines. The size of the fire is just too big right now for full suppression. It started during a period of extreme activity, so it grew very big very quickly. So last night, erratic winds from a thunderstorm ended up impacting a few kilometers of the road last night. This created a hazard and resulted in a temporary road closure. There's three factors really impacting the road closure. So there's potential for poor visibility if there's a lot of smoke in the area blowing over the road. There's potential for fire activity adjacent to the road, which creates a safety issue. And then the third one that we're addressing this morning is potential for danger trees. So erratic winds can cause damaged trees to fall onto the road, and they can also have damaged root systems, which mean they could fall at any time. So that's a big safety concern when you're traveling the road. So the road was temporarily closed last night. Responder safety and protection of life are always our top response goals, but high on that list is also protection of the environment. So on that note, we're aware that critical supplies are moving on that road. We're working directly with Victoria Gold and other essential travelers. So while the road is publicly closed this morning on 511, we are working very closely on moving those essential supplies whenever it's safe along the road. So that's a high priority for us, and we're continuing to manage the fire as best we can. Today, fire conditions continue to be fairly high. It's hot and dry in Mayo today, but there is rain anticipated and a downtrend in weather that should bring cooler temperatures today and into Saturday.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley. We'll now we'll now open the floor to questions. We'll give each reporter one question and one follow-up. I will ask that you please identify who your question is directed to. For those in the room, we ask you to please use the stand-up mic in the back corner for today. We will begin with reporters in the room. We'll then turn to reporters joining remotely. Please say in the chat if you have a question you'd like to ask. The first reporter is Sarah from CBC.
Hi, so just to be clear before, with Radio-Canada, so Julianne will be with CBC.
Okay, perfect. Radio-Canada.
And I guess nobody speaks French here. Would you? No? Okay. I do have one question for Tyler Williams. I just want to make really sure I understand. Have we been able to sample groundwater, and have we found cyanide there? And if so, what was the concentration?
Yeah, we have not been able to access the groundwater wells in the last 2 weeks due to the safety considerations there. So there's no new groundwater results in from the last week of updates, which I provided. And just to remind you, there was on those results there were two different sampling events that detected thiocyanate in the groundwater wells without any other forms of cyanide being detected.
And I'm not quite sure who to ask my next question. I'm in the directive, there was a list of stuff that Victoria Gold should be getting to be able to treat the water. Do we have any updates on, have they been able to have those agents, and where are they at with that?
I can start the response to that. Yes, equipment and supplies were mobilized to site, and the company is still in the process of commissioning their upgraded and enhanced water treatment system. Seven, anything to add there?
Yeah, I can add a bit more. So one of the requirements is for them to provide us regular updates on the various reagents that they need to commission and to implement their treatment plant, and they have been reporting on that as requested so far.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we have McClon, CKRW. McClon, sorry.
Hi. Can you hear me? Oh, this works. Okay, my question I think it's probably best for Stephen Mead. I could be wrong. So it was mentioned that the Yukon government contracted someone to do the safety berm. Where does that money come from? Does that come out of the $104 million in security?
Yukon government will make every effort to recover the costs, and one of the options we're looking at is drawing on the surety bonds for that purpose.
Okay, and just to follow up, so I understand that Victoria Gold has failed to meet a number of things that inspectors' directions have laid out. Do they not face any repercussions for failing to meet some of those?
There's a potential for that, I would say. Right now, we're still evaluating all of the information that's coming in, the response from the company, and we're continuing to inspect the site for compliance with its licenses and stuff like that. So at this time, I'm not in a position to really comment on whether there would be any kind of follow-up actions taken regarding those kind of compliance issues.
And I would just add that I wouldn't frame this as a repercussion, but it is a result of the company not complying with those directions that we are stepping in to undertake construction of the berm ourselves.
Thank you. Next, we have Jordan, APTN. Good. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And then Julian, CBC.
I think this is a question for Lauren Haney. Yeah, so missed deadlines. I've heard concerns about a holding pattern on site, people waiting for direction, wanting to do some work, but people are waiting to do that. So I'm wondering, you have mentioned in previous weeks that you're here to complement that work, help out where you can, but other reporters in this very room have asked, are you going to assume control to get the work done and get it done immediately? So I'm asking you now, why are you not using your regulatory powers to assume control to make changes that need to be done?
So, Julian, this is what we're doing now by undertaking construction of the berm is us, and we're doing that using our regulatory authorities under the legislation to be able to start that work. So we do have, as we've talked about, a progressive enforcement approach that does start with inspectors' directing the company, who is still ultimately responsible on site, to undertake the work. And as you say, as you point out, they have missed deadlines now, and so our subsequent actions in this case are stepping in to do it ourselves. We are contemplating what additional work might also need to be done.
Okay. I mean, I guess a lot of people believe that not enough is being done. So my question was, yeah, the berm is one piece of it, but it's so multifaceted that there's more work that needs to urgently happen. So anyway, I wanted to also just talk to you about word I have received about what the company is calling pre-treatment, sort of pumping things through tanks and pipes and what have you to do something called pre-treatment. And there's been some talk of the gold trying to recover, the company trying to recover gold that's still on site. I just want to ask if you can confirm that that's true and what pre-treatment means. I don't understand what that means.
Sure. Okay. So first, the company and the site is in temporary closure under the quartz mining license, and that means they're not authorized to be producing gold at this time. The pre-treatment, my understanding is that is largely around the cyanide destruction in order to pre-treat it so that it moves to the water treatment plant. Noting, I think I know the expertise on the panel here, and I hate to call you out, but we do have a technical expert here who is retained by the First Nation of Nacho-Nayak-Dun, Bill Slater, and I'm wondering, Bill, if you could help to explain that pre-treatment.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm not sure I can be of much assistance to you on this. I'm not a water treatment expert. The pre-treatment that is described relies on pumping the solution they are collecting through the carbon columns in what's called the ADR plant, the gold recovery plant, which is part of the gold recovery circuit. Beyond that, we don't really understand what that component is adding. As we understand it, it's water that's being pumped out of the event pond through the ADR plant, returning there and potentially returning to the heap. But beyond that, we don't know what that is intended necessarily to accomplish as far as pre-treatment.
And just to add, and I'm not sure if you can confirm this, Bill, but so my understanding is that the gold recovery circuit is a conversion that has been done to the ADR plant. So its primary purpose is producing gold, but it has been contemplated previously that it can be converted to become a cyanide destruction circuit. Is that your understanding as well, Bill?
Thanks, Lauren. It certainly can be, but at this point what we've been told by the company is that they are pumping the solution through the carbon columns as they exist.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Next, we have Virginie, CBC.
Yes, hi. I'd be curious to hear, you've mentioned several times that you're collaborating with the First Nation of Nacho-Nayak-Dun. So who at the table is the representative today of the First Nation?
We don't have representatives of the First Nation of Nacho-Nayak-Dun here today. We have solely the regulator and enforcement agency as well as our environmental protection agency of the public government.
Can you explain how come they're not part of this discussion?
I would say for now we're keeping this, as I say, as the message of the public government. I think in the future we could contemplate a co-briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Gillick, Yukon Star.
Yes, good morning. I guess my first question is probably for the Deputy Minister. With the Victoria Gold missing so many deadlines and on parts of these directions, do you feel like they're making a legitimate attempt at doing this, or are they just stringing you along?
I can't say whether it's a legitimate attempt. I will say that the company, I am aware they have limited resources on site because they have laid off so many people and demobilized a lot of equipment. They are undertaking activities, especially around water treatment, and we are watching that closely, but pleased to see that they are focusing on water treatment. We absolutely agree that is a primary objective, but as we've noted, there are directions that the company has not complied with, and we need to follow up on those.
How many of those directions is this amounted to?
It's actually bits and pieces of the various directions. So as I indicated earlier, a number of the directions require them to submit plans and then implement those plans. And for the most part, in the submission of the plans, they've complied. There's one that's outstanding right now that are expecting to have today. And some of the actions they are continuing to do, but others not, like the description of the berm that we asked them to do, and now we are implementing ourselves. So a number off the cuff, I wouldn't be able to provide you.
Thank you, Tim. Kay Chang, you're good? Okay. Stuart Bonnell, Sean FM. Sean FM.
Good morning. This question is probably for Deputy Minister Haney. Carcross-Tagish First Nation has joined White River First Nation and the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun in demanding an independent investigation into the incident. I understand that can't happen right now because we're still in cleanup mode, but CTFN also demanded that no new mining begin within its traditional territory, similar to the pause that Nacho-Naik-Dun demanded a few weeks ago. When can First Nations expect to see such a pause or temporary halt to mining on their traditional territories?
So first on the independent review process, that actually is something we can start in parallel, and I will pass it over to Kelly to speak more about the details of that. And regarding CTFN's request for a pause, as well as the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun, that is work and analysis that's being undertaken right now, and that is a political decision to be made. So Cabinet is very aware and in the thick of making decisions on that matter.
Thank you. In terms of the independent review, we have been engaging the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun on this. There's been discussions this week, and we're currently at the point where terms of reference has been shared and has been reviewed together. And we are also in the process of collaborating on understanding who some candidates might be to sit on that panel to undertake that work.
And just a quick follow-up, how many members of the panel today have been to Mayo to speak with First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun citizens about this in person since the slide happened?
Sorry, just to confirm, are you talking about the idea of an independent review panel, or are you talking about the panel sitting here?
So, sorry, yes, I'm talking about the panel here. How many of you have been to Mayo to speak with people in person since the heap leach failure 32 days ago?
I believe, well, Stephen Mead was there.
I was there talking to, excuse me, this week I was there speaking to them, yep, about some of the things Kelly was talking about the peer review.
And many of the rest of us plan to get there as soon as possible. I'm sure you can appreciate it's been all hands on deck in attempting to respond. That is not to say that it isn't very important for all of us to get up there and speak directly with the First Nation of Nacho-Naik-Dun government and its citizens, and that is on our radar, and we will be doing that as soon as we can.
just to follow up, our environment team is up there right now, and I was up there right at, I think, the 5th to meet with them as we develop this plan.
And I can add on to that. Yes, I was in Mayo on the 25th and 26th after the slide. We met with NND staff at that time to start the early discussions of the monitoring plan, which have since continued. Additional staff from our office followed up with subsequent in-person visits to finalize that plan.
Thank you. We will now move to online questions. I will ask that you please start by sharing with us what media outlet you're with before you ask your question, just in case we missed it. First, we have Niall McGee, Globe and Mail.
Yes, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm with the Globe and Mail. That is true. This question is for Lauren. In discussions with the company that Yukon government is having, I'm sure, all the time, what is your sense in how long the company can continue to fund this mitigation and cleanup effort?
I don't have enough information to be able to predict how long the company will be able to continue its work. I think we've all taken a look at the share price, and it's not a very positive outlook. However, for now, the company remains on site and paying its contractors going forward, and we're pleased to see them doing that.
Right. And then just as a follow, I think last week it was you that had sort of said it's a shame that the company has been so silent, and they actually have not said anything even after you made those comments last week. What have they said? I don't know, since you made that comments to them, to the Yukon government, about explanations as to why they're so silent.
They haven't provided explanations for why they are so publicly silent. We are in close communication with key members of the company and around getting the information we need to advance the human health and safety and environmental protection objectives we have. But publicly, I absolutely stand by what I said last week. I think it is very unfortunate they haven't come out with public statements and engagement, and I certainly, for one, wish they would.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have Jim Elliott, Yukon News.
Hello, yes, Jim Elliott from the Yukon News. Am I being heard in the room there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. My question, I think, is for Deputy Minister Haney. I'd like to know what does the government need to know about the heap to declare it safe for work below it, and what is being done to find that out?
So there's work actually being undertaken right now by the company, and so it's geotechnical stability analysis is what we're looking for. So the company is undertaking that work right now using their geotechnical experts, and we have retained geotechnical engineering experts to support us in reviewing the information they've provided. So thus far, we don't have enough data or information to know whether stability of the heap is assured. And it is part of the reason that we've pivoted to constructing the safety berm. So rather than wait for the stability analysis, we're proceeding with, and in this case, it's developing a safety berm to create a safe area behind it, and that is for the purpose of drilling those groundwater wells.
And as a follow-up, will that berm allow for all the work that needs to be done down below the heap, or will some future stabilization of it be required as well?
Yeah, I'll take this, Stephen Mead, Assistant Deputy Minister. The berm that we are currently mobilizing through our contractors to build is specifically related to provide safe working zones for the anticipated groundwater interception, monitoring and interception wells. That's its prime purpose. At this stage, it is not anticipated that that would necessarily create additional safety zones in other areas for other work. So any time work needs to happen currently in that failure zone where there remains a credible risk of future failures of the heap, which increases the risks in that area, there would have to be additional assessment done as to whether or not the specific work in the specific location can be conducted safely. And if it's not, there would need to be additional safety measures implemented. I just wanted to go on to say that the berm currently under construction, well, not quite currently under construction, as we are currently holding our constructors in Whitehorse waiting for safe access. We did get a support very quickly from Heckler and Pelly Construction, who have stood up together to provide the response. They are the contractors that we are using. That work will have to be initiated through the construction of a safe road to the area. Worker health and safety is paramount. Working in a hazardous zone means that we have to be extremely careful on how we approach that. So there'll be a new access road put in, hopefully over the weekend if the cooler weather and the rain that Hayley mentioned is actually happens. And then that would allow us to start that work in a safe position, and the berm will be constructed such that the workers remain safe as they move that berm across the valley.
Thank you. We'll now move to Daryl Greer.
Yes, hello, I'm with the Canadian Press. Am I being heard okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
This question is likely for Deputy Minister Haney or Mr. Bonnet. We've talked a lot about the deadlines that this company has missed, and the regulatory concerns around this mine are not exactly new. How many chances are you willing to give this company to miss deadlines, to submit unsigned memos, and to not sufficiently describe their water treatment plans? How many chances are you willing to give them before you're willing to step in? You talk about your progressive approach. How much do you have to kind of allow them this leeway before you actually make a decision and kind of take the kid gloves off and say we're going to take over?
I think our tolerance for that is exemplified by the fact that we are stepping in now and taking action. So to be clear, we have never doubted the urgency of this situation, and that's why we have acted quickly in terms of using the regulatory tools we have available to us, the inspector's directions, and now that it is clear that in certain cases the company is not complying with pieces of those directions, we are stepping in, as I've said, to supplement what's being done on site.
Just as a follow-up, the unsigned memos that described this water treatment plan and the insufficient storage capacity and the failure to meet a deadline about the lining on this water storage facility and the capacity, has any progress been made in that respect, or are there still insufficient plans to construct this water storage facility?
It's Seven here. So the company is constructing a pond right now. As I understand it from the information I received from our inspectors who were on site this week, is that the excavation for that initial facility is almost complete, and then we'll begin lining it shortly. Is it sufficient overall in regards to the request that we have? We're not sure. We're evaluating the capacity that pond will provide. But like I said earlier, we're also in conversations with the company about other options for increasing overall storage capacity on the site. And that's a live conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Blair McBride with the Northern Miner.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, a similar question to what was previously asked. Look, what would be, I understand that the government is taking over now to construct this berm. What would be the final trigger for the Yukon government declaring it's completely taking over the cleanup effort?
I would say at this point there are some triggers. I can't predict exactly what they'll be right now. This is a new and unfolding situation for us. But of course, as we've seen in previous examples, if the company were to walk away, then we would certainly be prepared to step in. The path from here to that potential scenario remains unknown at this time. We take it one step at a time, one decision at a time.
Okay, and then as a follow-up, at what point, or what is the trigger for the $104 million surety bond to be activated?
There are several triggers for that, and as I mentioned, that is one of the options we are contemplating now, when and if we draw on that bond at this point or sometime in the future.
Thank you. Next, we have Gretchen Wemhoff from the Skagway News.
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm curious. I know the First Nation of Nachanayadun has made definitely said, hey, we would like everyone to consider stopping new mining. But my question goes along with that. The question is, do these events, have you been in contact with other mines in the region based on these events? In other words, do you think that this is going to impact the inspection on the safety and environmental protections in the future, or the geotechnical stability of other mines? Is there communication, and is there a chance that this situation will extend to safety and inspections for the other mines?
I would say first, more broadly regarding the independent review that we are undertaking, that process will certainly lead to some changes in policies and practices around how we license heap leach facilities. And it remains to be seen whether those lessons learned will apply to other mining facilities as well. The only other operating mine in the territory broadly right now is the Keno Hill silver operations run by Hecla. We are in conversation with Hecla. They're very live to this discussion. As Stephen pointed out, they are assisting us right now with getting onto site and starting some of the environmental protection work we need to undertake. Hecla has already indicated that they would be open to an additional potential audit of their operations. I will note, though, that their operations have gone through our assessment process, our licensing process, and that site continues to be regularly inspected. And within their quartz mining license, there is the requirement for an environmental audit periodically. So that's something, that's a good, strong foundation, solid basis that we have to build on.
Thank you very much. Actually, could I do one quick follow-up?
Yeah.
Will this have any impact on the casino mine?
I don't think I can guess what impact it will have. As you're aware, it is currently undergoing panel review by the Yukon Environmental and Socioeconomic Assessment Board. So for now, it is in their hands, but we will certainly, again, the outcomes of the independent review process will inform how us as regulators are looking at that project as it moves through assessment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for our final reporter on the line, we have Kanina Holmes from CBC Yukon.
Hi, good morning. I was wondering if somebody could provide the latest estimate as to how much water has gone into the environment from the mine, contaminated water. We had some estimates near the beginning of the incident, but I'm wondering with the 32 days that have passed, what's the figure that you can give us in terms of just the volume, the amount of water that has gone into creeks and the land?
Hi, this is Kelly Constable, Director of Mineral Resources. We have a team of experts that we've assembled, and that is one of the questions that our team of experts is working on, as they also work on addressing the immediate concerns with respect to how we address actions needing to be taken on site through the inspector's directions and other requirements we've had through the regulatory process. So we don't have an estimate update at this time. Our team is working on it.
And do you have a sense of when you might get that data and release it?
It's a great question. I think that we can speak to the fact that the team is also working on broadly at Yukon Government here an online portal for folks to be able to access ongoing water quality data associated with this event. That those kinds of reports would also be something we'd look to share through that portal. I don't have a timeline currently on this work. Our team does know it's a priority, as it continues to be a question of ours and a question from the public as well.
Thank you. And if I could have a follow-up, it's a different question but related. I'm just wondering, with the work that the Yukon Government is undertaking now with regard to building a berm and the other work that has happened since the slide, do you have an estimate for how much the Yukon Government has put towards in terms of just how much money this has currently cost YG to do this?
I don't, we're certainly keeping track of the money spent, and as I said, we will make every effort to recover the costs we're incurring, but I don't have that estimate at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes today's technical briefing. Thank you to our speakers and to everyone who tuned in today, and have a lovely weekend.